In 2023, DC kicked off the new Golden Age, a fresh take on its classic heroes led by Geoff Johns. This brought back the Justice Society of America and gave us solo comics for three legends: Garrick, the original Flash, Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern, and surprisingly, Wesley Dodds, the Golden Age Sandman. Unlike Flash or Green Lantern, Sandman hasn't really been in the spotlight for decades, but this new series, written by Robert Venditti and drawn by Bryan Hitch and Riley Rossmo's unique art style, gave the character a whole new edge. Wesley Dodds even popped up in a 2018 Martian Manhunter story, and over the years he's quietly earned his place in comic book history. Wizard magazine once ranked him among the top 200 comic characters ever, and if you go by continuity, he's actually DC's oldest superhero, just 1 month younger than Batman. Let's dive into the story of Wesley Dodds, the very first Sandman. Who is Wesley Dodds? What is his origin story? Wesley Dodds, aka the Sandman, started out as a bit of a mystery man, rocking a World War I style gas mask and using a special gas gun to knock out criminals. He wasn't flashy, just a guy in a green suit and fedora doing vigilante work. Created by writer Gardner Fox and artist Alan Burt Christman, he first showed up in the 1930s. At first, he wasn't even a superhero in the traditional sense, but over time, DC gave him the full treatment, added a cape, made him a founding member of the Justice Society of America, and even gave him a sidekick named Sandy. The Sandman, however, like most other superheroes, fell into oblivion in the 1940s, when it was revived as Sandman Mystery Theater in the 1990s. Following the popularity of writer Neil Gaiman's Sandman, Morpheus, an embodiment of dreams. The man with peculiar dreams. Every night, Wesley Dodds dreamed of a crime. In other words, it was not a dream, but a nightmare, during which he would go all out to catch the criminal by donning his Sandman avatar, so that his city, NYC, could sleep in peace. How did he become Sandman? Wesley Dodds was a wealthy man, like most superheroes. He's said to have been born in the early 1910s to rich parents: Edward Dodds, an investor, and Marina Dodds. He lost his mother as a child due to unspecified reasons and spent his youth in the Orient, where he learned herbalism, origami, and martial arts. He has traveled extensively from Europe to Asia. He inherited his parents' vast estate after college and the subsequent death of his father, which left him free to spend the money as he saw fit. Around this time, something strange took over him: dreams. His sleep was riddled with the stark dreams about various crimes occurring around him, resulting in sleepless nights. I always wondered why he had these dreams, but now I have an answer, which has been explained below. To combat this problem of dreams, he established a laboratory and funded the research necessary to discover the formula for sleep-inducing and hypnotic gases. Being a chemist and a good one at his profession, Dodds set up a basement lab in his townhouse to study herbalism, developing sedative and hypnotic gases. After buying gas masks, he adopted the Sandman persona to hunt violent criminals from his dreams. Once the formula for sleeping gas was cracked, he invented a good gas mask that would protect him on his rampage to attack those criminals who haunted him in his dreams. He gave himself a name: Sandman. Role of Wesley Dodds in comics. Why was Wesley getting the dreams? When Morpheus was incarcerated on Earth, a time between the two world wars, the universe, in its bid to replenish the vacuum created by Morpheus' dreams' absence, scattered Morpheus' powers to certain people, one of whom was Wesley. This was the reason Wesley suffered from sleeplessness, as he was experiencing visions and premonitions about the criminal activities, much like the ones Morpheus had. And that's how Wesley conceived the Sandman, based on the image of Morpheus, and backed it up with his entire getup: a green suit, a fedora, a gas mask, and a tranquilizer gun to bring the haunting criminals under his control. Morpheus' influence on Wesley's life. Sometime in 1939, Wesley, accompanied by his romantic partner Diane, visited London to investigate the murder of a close family friend. In London, he figured out a string of jewelry thefts that was connected to the Order of Ancient Mysteries, whose founder, Roderick Burgess, had held Wesley's master, Morpheus, in captivity. Since Wesley had Morpheus' vision, he could see the taunts and torture Dream was being subjected to, which was drawing him to the source of his powers, Morpheus. Following his vision, Wesley sneaks into the mighty Fawny rig and traces Morpheus, who detects his powers in Wesley. However, Morpheus deletes Wesley's memory of his meeting with his master, rendering him useless to help him. Later, since Wesley was one of the people Morpheus had interacted with, Wesley was permitted to attend the wake, where he gave a eulogy thanking the Dream Lord Morpheus, which contributed to a rich lifetime. Sandman's journey to become an earnest superhero. While out on his mission, he came across the Crimson Avenger, Lee Travis, and they fought, unaware that they were college mates, having seen each other in their respective guises. Later, they teamed up to fight the mad serial killer, the Phantom of the Fair, who wreaked havoc at the 1938 World's Fair. It was during this encounter that Travis gifted Dodds with a gun, which he later redesigned to make a gun that could emit his lab-prepared sleeping gas, which was now ready to strike. Following this, the Sandman went all out to put his mission into action, and first confronted the serial killer known as the Tarantula. As he progressed on his mission, he came across socialite Diane Belmont at an evening ball. Diane was the daughter of District Attorney Larry Belmont, who later became Wesley's romantic partner and learned about his dual life. At first, she had difficulty accepting it, but later warmed to the idea and stayed with him for as long as she lived. It was a pair made in heaven. The unique return gift. With every violent dream he got, the Sandman was forced to deal with some dangerous criminals, such as Dr. Death, the Scorpion, and the Butcher. After every fight and putting his criminals to rest, he left them a poem in a piece of origami, words of which meant no one was beyond the law, and they would be woken up from their dreams to face their fate, which would be terrifying. By the late 1940s, the Sandman had earned himself a name such that Dr. Fate asked him to join in their fight against the Nazis, which led to the formation of the Justice Society of America, where Sandman was a charter member. It was President Franklin Roosevelt who asked Wesley to become a founding member, so that the Mystery Men could protect America while the Army focused on the war. It was in the Sandman's apartment where the JSA met every 2 months. By mid-1941, the Sandman, along with JSA, stopped Ian Karkel from butchering candidates who were destined to be in the White House for the next 50 years. At the end of the fight against Karkel, he was destroyed and exposed the JSA to the stored chronal energy in Karkel's body. Due to this emission, the Sandman, along with members of the JSA, were subject to slow aging. Wesley's sidekick, Sandy, Wesley's so-called stooge, was Diane's orphan nephew, Sandy Hawkins, whom the couple adopted. Known as the Costume Golden Boy, Sandy assisted Wesley in his outings and also influenced his attire by suggesting the replacement of his dull green suit with a gold and purple costume. The costume was bought earlier from a costume ball. Diane modified it to suit Wesley's superhero look. Unfortunately, when the Sandman was developing a weapon with silicone extracted from sand, Sandy, who was assisting him, came in the line of the experimental weapons explosion. The explosion resulted in infusing Sandy with radioactive particles, turning him into a silicoid monster. Fearing Sandy's instant state of delirium might draw attention from the public, who might seek to destroy him, Sandman subdued him and stored him in a large enclosure kept in the basement of his home. Sandy's accident left Dodds disheartened, and he retired from his role as the Sandman, spending the remaining years of his life as a businessman with his beloved Diane while trying to cure Sandy. It was also the time most of his comrades from the JSA had retired due to the betrayal by the American government, who had asked them to serve without their masks. Once a superhero, always a superhero. Silver and Bronze Age. In the 1960s, Sandman came out of retirement, back in his classic green suit and gas mask. Why? Because his newer purple and gold costume reminded him too much of Sandy, and the memories were a bit too heavy. Wesley had been semi-active with the JSA at the time, but things took a wild turn when the sedation gas keeping Sandy stable malfunctioned. Sandy escaped and went on a chaotic rampage, not out of rage, but because he was in serious pain. His body was reacting to seismic energy inside him, and it took both the JSA and the Justice League to finally bring him down. But here's the twist. Sandy had been fully conscious the entire time. He remembered everything, how Wesley had kept him locked away and shuffled him between labs, trying to find a cure. That hit Wesley hard. After that, he officially retired and stepped away from being the Sandman for good. To fully move on, Wesley even saw a psychiatrist, Dr. Raymond Baxter, who helped erase his memories of ever being Sandman. And that was that until a gangster named Snooze Simpson showed up looking for revenge. A trigger phrase, Sandy Hawkins, reactivated Wesley's old memories, and just like that, the Sandman was back. He took Snooze down the old-fashioned way, and that marked his unexpected return to the world of superheroes. Later, Shatterer, a frustrated and disgruntled scientist, kidnapped Sandy from the Sandman's research facility, where he'd been kept under observation. The Shatterer was attempting to tap Sandy's seismic focusing abilities to initiate ginormous seismic currents, to exact revenge upon his former mates. Wesley used a carbon-based ray similar to the silicone-based ray that had transformed Sandy and brought him back to his carbon-based form. The Shatterer was stumped by being tricked and losing his resource. Still, it wasn't all over when Sandy let out a final seismic jolt, caving the ground below the Shatterer that gobbled him up almost immediately. Sandy hadn't aged due to his silicoid body being immune to it, and he teamed up with Wesley again, although for a brief time. Modern Age. The Sandman had one disease, a weak heart, due to which he suffered a stroke, but that didn't stop him from joining the JSA to fight Ragnarok, which the JSA ultimately won. As a result, Wesley returned to his small family, consisting of Diane and Sandy. But Wesley's health was an issue, and he suffered another stroke. Yet, he saved the life of a VIP visiting the same hospital where he was admitted. Despite his retirement, Wesley continued to return when he joined the JSA to fight on Extant during Zero Hour, along with the rest of the JSA. During this fight, he aged to his true age and almost died, but pulled through it successfully. Later, when Diane was diagnosed with terminal cancer, the couple cashed out all their money and went on a whirlwind world tour to spend her last days. While in the Middle East, a couple of thugs mistook Wesley for a rich bloke and kidnapped Diane for ransom. Wesley knew paying the ransom would do nothing since the criminals would kill Diane, so he donned the Sandman disguise and went after them and induced them with a rarely used gas that resulted in a permanent comatose state. Diane was rescued, and they went off to their next destination, Asia. After Diane died in Tibet, Wesley learned of a new threat called the Dark Lord, who aimed to block Dr. Fate's arrival. Foreseeing his death in a dream, he climbed Mount Kailash with Speed Saunders and received information from the Gray Man about where the next Dr. Fate would be born. When Mordu tried to force Wesley to reveal this knowledge, Wesley chose to jump to his death instead. He was buried beside Diane in Valhalla, with his friends in attendance and Sandy delivering the eulogy. Wesley's body was later reanimated into the Black Lantern, whose main purpose was to kill the person who had benefited from his death. After the crisis was over, Wesley's corpse was laid back in Valhalla. Golden Age. Once, when Wesley was away at work, Diane Belmont went out as the Sandman and chased some local Nazi agents. As she drove towards them, they showered bullets on her, forcing her to crash. The extensive firing had taken its toll on her as she struggled for life, and by the time Sandman arrived, she was dead. However, it was later revealed that Diane had survived. It was right after this incident that Sandman took on the famous gold-purple superhero suit he had originally bought for a costume ball, but modified it for his use. It was around this time that he and Diane adopted her nephew, Sandy Hawkins, who later became his stooge, Sandy the Golden Boy. Sometime in December 1941, the time-traveling villain Per Degaton captured the Sandman, along with other members of the JSA, including Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Robin. The rescue mission of these superheroes led to the formation of the All-Star Squadron, of which the Sandman was a member, and remained active until mid-1945, after which the Sandman developed cardiac problems. His first cardiac arrest led to his resignation from the JSA active member list. Sometime before 1951, when the Sandman was attempting to develop a new weapon, Sandy's accident occurred, and after which things began to go awry, changing the Sandman's demeanor toward his profession. In the post-Flashpoint era of Earth 2, Wesley Dodds became the Canadian leader of an underground group known as the Sandmen, who utilized teleportation and espionage skills to aid the World Army and Amar Khan. During Solomon Grundy's attack on Washington, D.C., it's said that Dodds was responsible for rescuing the President of the United States to a safe zone. His mistrust of Terry Sloan led Dodds to kidnap a radicalized Michael Holt from Sloan's laboratory at the behest of Khan, and in the process destroy Terry's lab. Again, during the invasion of Darain by the World Army, the Sandmen teamed with the bare-handed crime fighter Al Pratt, Atom, and Red Arrow to attack from the front lines. When the Hunter Dogs attacked, the Sandmen worked closely with Dr. Fate, Green Lantern, and the Flash to defeat them. While fighting Brutal, the Wonders were defeated, but the Sandmen suffered serious casualties, and Dodds was last seen taking an injured Amar Khan to a safe place using teleportation. Powers and abilities. The Sandman uses custom chemical weapons, a gas gun, and concealed anesthetics to subdue enemies. Without them, he's exposed. His sole superhuman ability is receiving case clues via cryptic, premonitory dreams. Powers. Prophetic dreams. Due to the transfer of Morpheus' power to him, Wesley was blessed with the ability to dream of crimes happening around him, enabling him to arrive on time and stop them. These dreams were cryptic and vague, which was the reason he became the Sandman. He's said to have passed on the power to his assistant, Sanderson Hawkins, Sandy, at the time of his death. Decelerated aging. As mentioned before, after the battle with Karkul in 1942, Wesley, along with the members of the All-Star Squadron, imbibed the boon of agelessness. Abilities. Artistry, origami, writing. Wesley was not just a combatant or a chemist, but also a marvelous artist who left little origami creations along with a poem for the criminals he had taken down. Aviation. Wesley could fly aircraft and was a skilled pilot. Criminology. Wesley Dodds was renowned for his exceptional detective skills. He was skilled at piecing clues together to identify the criminal. Driving. He was an ace driver leading chases with aplomb. Safe cracking. The Sandman was exceptionally skilled at breaking locks and cracking safe codes. His intellect was of a genius level, and he was skilled in tactics, with mechanical aptitude. Wesley was also a talented inventor, having created his wirepoon and continuously upgraded his gas gun. Chemistry. His prowess in chemistry was the reason he could create sedative vapors and gases that were used in his tranquilizer gun. He even invented the silicoid gun, which worked as a remote control to use sand in any form or state. The silicone gun could make cement walls and glass handcuffs. Unfortunately, the prototype of the weapon exploded, resulting in the tragic accident with Sandy Hawkins. To keep Sandy safe, Wesley invented a chamber that induced a coma in Sandy and kept him alive for several years. Wesley Dodds was a skilled martial artist and proficient in jiu-jitsu. Equipment: World War I gas mask. Earlier, Sandman used a World War I gas mask to prevent himself from inhaling his sleeping gas, which he later upgraded into a state-of-the-art mask that worked even underwater. Wirepoon gun. This weapon was used to shoot a thin steel cable and worked like a rope, helping to climb high walls and swing between buildings. Transportation. Early in his career, the Sandman drove a black 1938 Plymouth Coupe, equipped with crime-fighting features such as detachable barbed spikes in the bumper. He stored the car in his basement lab and accessed it through a concealed garage exit across the block. Weapons. Gas gun. The Sandman was known for his gas gun, which didn't have bullets but was loaded with cartridges storing a concentrated form of sleeping gas. If one pressed the trigger, the weapon would release a smoky cloud of dust, making anyone and everyone surrounding the Sandman unconscious. Some variant of the sleeping gas, in addition to rendering the enemy unconscious, could also work to initiate a truth serum, wherein the criminal, in his semi-conscious state, could cough up all their secrets during Wesley's interrogation, before falling into a deep slumber. Another variant of the gas instilled nightmares in the criminals. At one point, Wesley also formulated a gas that could induce a permanent coma in his opponents. Wesley often hid small gas capsules in the heel of his shoe, which he used as a substitute for his gun. Marvelous trivia. In 1999, Wesley was known to be 86 years old, and if this were to be matched with the 1976 Super DC calendar, Wesley's birthday would have been November 3rd, 1913, so that makes him belong to the zodiac sign Scorpio. Marvelous verdict. First, I must confess that Wesley Dodds' powers and abilities make him just as great as any of the popular superhero comic icons, such as Superman or Spider-Man. Characters like Wesley Dodds, who belong to the oldest generation of DC Comics, are underexposed to a whole generation such as us. Therefore, he's not celebrated enough. He's a guy who was not only a chemist but also a martial arts expert, who had developed a superpower that could put criminals to sleep. He could also swing and scale walls, which makes him no less than the other celebrated superheroes. I think it's because of his association with JSA, where they all worked like a team, focusing on the problem at hand instead of glorifying their respective superpowers. Do you agree or disagree? Let us know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more marvelous videos.